When a sadistic killer turns murder into live primetime entertainment, the nation watches in horror, and the FBI realizes they're chasing a director who scripts death like cinema. Rain-slicked pavement shimmered under the weak glow of streetlights. Lena's shoes made a soft slap with each step, the sound too loud in the empty street. She pulled her coat tighter. The night air carried a metallic bite dot behind her. Faint, uneven footsteps. She stopped. They stopped. Her breath misted in the cold, curling in front of her face before vanishing. She glanced over her shoulder. The alley behind was empty. Just the soft pulse of a dying neon sign, bleeding red across the wet bricks. Probably just my imagination. She started walking again, quicker this time. The sound returned. Step, step, step. Matching her pace, her hand slid into her coat pocket and found her phone. The screen glowed against her palm. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the emergency call button. Then it buzzed. A new notification. Unknown. Sender. Live now a streaming link. Her brow furrowed. No name, no number. Just a blinking icon, as if someone were urging her to watch. She almost ignored it. The footsteps sounded. Closer. Her thumb tapped the link. The video opened to a grainy night scene. Wet asphalt, street lamps, a dark silhouette in the distance. She frowned. Something about it felt wrong. The perspective was off. Her stomach dropped. It was her street. Her coat. Her hair swaying in the wind. Her own back. The camera view swayed slightly as the unseen figure moved. She whipped around. Nothing but shadows. The live feed in her hand showed otherwise. A tall figure in a black hood, half hidden by the dark, just far enough to blur into the background. But there was something in the stillness of his frame, the deliberate tilt of his head, that made her throat tighten. The screen flickered. A red timer appeared in the corner. 1:50. 7 counting down. Her chest constricted. She spun on her heel. Walking fast now. Boots slipping slightly on the wet ground. The timer ticked lower. 1:32. She wanted to run. But the street stretched out ahead like a tunnel with no end. She passed a shuttered bakery, the faint smell of old bread clinging to the air. The feed stayed with her, always from behind, always too close. She glanced at it again. The hooded figure was nearer now. 1:08. Her breath quickened. She broke into a run. The feed jerked violently, the image bouncing with each of her frantic steps. 49. Her phone slipped from her sweaty grip, clattering onto the pavement. She didn't stop. The feed kept playing on the ground, her fleeing silhouette shrinking in the distance, until a hand in a black glove picked it up. 33. Shadow fell over her. She risked a look back and slammed into a wall of muscle. The hooded figure stood inches away, face hidden, breath slow. One gloved hand rested casually on her shoulder. The other held the phone up, so she could see herself trembling in the frame. 12. Her mouth opened, to scream, to plead, but the sound never came. A sharp, chemical smell filled her nose as a cloth pressed over her mouth. The world narrowed to the ticking. Timer. 4. Her knees buckled. The cold pavement rose to meet her. 2. The hood tilted, almost curious, almost admiring. 0. The broadcast cut to static. Warehouse loomed at the end of a dead industrial road, its rusted doors yawning open under the wash of flashing red and blue lights. FBI. Special Agent Claire Voss stepped out of the black SUV, the smell of damp metal and stale oil clinging to the cold air. She adjusted the strap of her bulletproof vest as her partner, Agent Marcus Hawley, fell into step beside her. Local PD swept the perimeter. No one inside now, Hawley murmured. Claire nodded, though her jaw tightened. She'd seen the footage. Everyone had. Inside, the darkness swallowed them until their flashlights carved thin tunnels through dust and hanging cobwebs. The main room opened like a theater stage, and in the center, under a single cone of light, sat the chair. She stopped. Lina was there, or what was left of her. Her long black hair was draped forward over her face like a curtain, strands sticking to her cheeks where the blood had dried. Her wrists were bound tight against the armrests with black cable ties. A microphone rested on her lap, as if she'd been waiting for her line. Behind her, A camera on a tripod stared back at them, its lens unblinking. Along the back wall, 6 TV screens flickered in perfect sync, looping the same grainy footage from earlier that night. Lena walking, Lena turning, Lena falling. Static. Claire single quotes s gut churned. She forced herself to look away, scanning the scene for the other thing she knew would be here. It didn't take long to find to the left. In a deliberate, painterly scrawl, words stretched across black painted bricks in thick white paint. The audience must feel it. Marcus read it aloud, his voice low, almost unwilling. Feels like performance art. If performance art was made in hell. Claire crouched by the chair, careful not to disturb the evidence markers. The smell here was heavier, metallic and sweet. She'd smelled it in too many crime scenes, but the cameras made it worse. As if the moment was still alive, replaying over and over in the air itself. Family saw it live, Marcus said quietly behind her. News channel was mid-segment when the feed hijacked. Husband was watching from the kitchen. Claire's throat tightened. He's going to remember every second. Every look. A crime scene tech approached with a tablet, the pale glow, lighting his tired face. Metadata from the stream confirms the broadcast originated here. But the signal was bounced 3 different relay points before hitting the main line. This guy's no amateur. Claire stood, her eyes lingering on the painted words. No, he's a planner. He wants control, not just of the victim, but the narrative. The audience is part of the crime. Across the room, another tech cataloged. A pile of equipment, portable switchboards, video mixers, laptops with serial numbers scratched off. Everything was arranged in neat rows, cables coiled perfectly, a director's kit waiting for the next shoot. Any prints? Marcus asked. Nothing. Usable so far, the tech replied. Gloves were guessing. Claire took a step toward the monitors. On one screen, Lena's face twitched just before she collapsed. The loop reset before the body hit the ground. It was worse than watching the actual footage. The repetition made it mechanical, like the life had been edited into a sequence for replay. Killers like this. Marcus exhaled through his nose. They escalate fast. Claire's eyes stayed on the loop. Not just escalate. They'll try to outdo themselves. Bigger audience. Clearer message. From somewhere deep in the building, a faint creak echoed, the sound of an old beam settling. But for a second, every person in the room froze, as if the killer might still be watching them from the shadows. Bag everything, Claire ordered, her voice sharper now. Every cable, every drive, every scrap of tape. He left this place for us to find. That means there's something here he wants us to see. And something he doesn't, Marcus added. As they moved toward the exit, Claire paused at the threshold. She looked back at the staged scene, the chair in the spotlight, the camera fixed, the painted words looming above. It didn't look like a murder scene. It looked like a set after the curtain had fallen. She imagined the killer standing here minutes before they arrived, watching his own work from the corner, savoring the silence before slipping into the dark. And for the first time that night, she felt the creeping certainty that they weren't chasing him. He was leading them. By the time the sun rose over the Potomac, the FBI's Washington field office was already humming like a disturbed beehive. Screens glowed in every corner, the air heavy with stale coffee, and the faint buzz of overworked electronics. Special Agent Dr. Ethan Cross stood in the center of the operations floor, watching the looping footage on the main display. He'd spent 2 decades dissecting the darkest minds in the country, but something about this case clung to him in a way he couldn't shake. Maybe it was the sheer audacity, killing live, hijacking the news, or maybe it was how personal it felt, as if the killer wasn't speaking to the public at large, but to each individual viewer. His fingers rested on his chin, eyes tracking every flicker of movement in Lena's last moments. Claire and Marcus approached, the weariness from the warehouse still on their faces. This is Dr. Cross, Claire said. Our lead profiler, Agent Voss, Agent Hall. Cross's voice was low, calm, but there was a tautness underneath. I've been reviewing the footage, and the metadata your tech team pulled. He gestured toward a side table where a pair of forensic analysts sat hunched over laptops, the pale glow turning their faces ghostly. One of them, a wiry woman named Chun, spoke without looking up. The stream was injected into 9 major news broadcasts simultaneously. He bypassed local signals entirely, went straight to regional feeds. Every channel showing the same feed, same timestamp. Marcus whistled under his breath. You know how much coordination that takes? Chun didn't smile. Yeah, weeks of prep, minimum. And he's done it before, just not with murders. We're tracing similar anomalies in archive signals from the last 6 months. Cross stepped closer to the screen. He's choosing more than just a location or a time. He's choosing an audience. Prime time hours, the point when the most eyes are on the news. His kills are staged for maximum reach. Claire folded her arms. And his victims? Cross hesitated for a beat, as if weighing how much to reveal. They're not random. He's selecting women with long black hair. That much is obvious. But look closer. They all project a similar public image. Clean, professional, safe. The kind of face a network could put on camera without controversy. He's weaponizing that familiarity, turning comfort into horror. The words sat heavy in the air across the room. Another analyst piped up, holding a tablet. Public reactions already snowballing. Social media is saturated. Hashtags are trending nationwide. People are cutting their hair, dyeing it. Salons are reporting spikes in appointments. Marcus frowned. You think he cares about that? Cross's eyes narrowed. I think he's counting on it. Public fear isn't a side effect here. It's a metric. If his work is a performance, this is how he measures applause. Claire glanced toward the bank of televisions along the wall, each one running a different network. Talking heads speculated over blurry freeze frames of the killer's silhouette. Anchor voices carried tones of outrage, mixed with subtle awe. Media's eating it up, Marcus muttered, and giving him exactly what he wants. For a moment, the room was filled only with the low hum of servers and the steady clicking of keyboards. Then Cross spoke again, quieter this time. This won't stop. Not until we find a way to interrupt his performance mid-act. He's not afraid of being caught. He's afraid of losing the stage. Chun swiveled her chair toward him. We might be able to track the signal source during a broadcast. But he's smart. Uses pre-recorded local noise to mask his location. It's like chasing a voice in an echo chamber. Cross nodded slowly. Then we don't chase the voice. We watch for the moment he breathes between lines. Claire raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Meaning he's human, Cross said. And humans slip, even when they think they're perfect. From somewhere behind them, a printer spat out a stack of freshly generated reports. Claire picked them up, lists of potential signal anomalies, names of women in the DC area, matching the victim profile. The list was longer than she liked. She set it on the table with a muted thud. We're already too far behind. Cross didn't argue. His gaze had drifted back to the frozen frame of Lena, turning toward the camera. The exact moment realization hit her eyes. This, he murmured, almost to himself, is the moment he's addicted to. The instant when fear becomes inevitable. Everything after that is just closing the curtain. No one spoke. Outside the glass walls of the operations floor, the city moved on in morning light, commuters hurrying to work, coffee shops steaming, a world unaware of how quickly its sense of safety could unravel. Inside, they all knew it was only a matter of time before the next broadcast and the next curtain fall. The room was dark, except for the glow of a dozen screens. Each showed the same scene from a slightly different angle. Lena's last minutes. One camera caught the tilt of her head. Another, the tremor in her hands. Another, the precise moment the timer hit 0. He watched them all at once, eyes darting like a conductor's hands scanning a symphony. Ah, he whispered, leaning forward in his chair. There it is. There, the frame, the truth. On the far wall, a whiteboard overflowed with storyboards, rough sketches, arrows, timing notes. Beneath them, a phrase scrawled in black ink. The audience must feel I'd ran a fingertip over the words as though caressing the cheek of a lover. The director, as he called himself, turned toward a central camera mounted above his desk. Its red light blinked like a heartbeat. "Good evening, my devoted viewers," he said softly. His voice carried the calm precision of someone who had rehearsed every syllable. Tonight's performance exceeded expectations. Our leading lady was exquisite. He reached to the shelf beside him and lifted a small glass jar. Inside, a coil of black hair gleamed under the monitor's light. He held it up to the camera, smiling with slow satisfaction. A perfect souvenir. Carefully, he set it next. To the others, 7 in total, each labeled with a date and a time. "I can already hear you out there," he continued, leaning closer to the lens. His pupils were pinpoints in the glow. The shock. The outrage. "But you're still watching, aren't you? You always watch." A chuckle escaped him, low at first, then climbing into something sharper, almost boyish in its glee. "I give you truth, and you call it horror. I give you art, and you call it crime. But every frame, every breath, every blink, you feel it, don't you?" He stood suddenly, pacing between the monitors. His hand brushed across the screen, showing Lena's frozen face, then lingered over a paused frame from another woman's final moments. "Leading ladies," he murmured. "Each one unique, each one unforgettable." The pacing stopped. He stared up at a blank screen in the corner. Its surface reflected only his silhouette. "That one," he said quietly. "That one will be for the finale." For a long moment, he simply stood there, breathing slowly, the hum of the monitors filling the silence. Then he turned back to the central camera and whispered, "Stay tuned." Somewhere in the darkness beyond his lair, a phone began to ring. By midday, the story had metastasized. Every news channel carried the same uneasy refrain. The FBI had no way to prevent the live hijackings. Anchor after anchor repeated the line, with subtle variations, their faces trying to project authority while their voices betrayed unease. Behind them, looping bar roll of Lena's last moments blurred into a kind of national nightmare. On the scrolling ticker, a grim tally. 8 victims, 8 broadcasts. 0 suspects. Social media was a torrent, grainy videos flagged by terrified users, each claiming to have found the next stream. Most were hoaxes. Some were disturbing enough to merit police intervention. Phone lines at local precincts buckled under the weight of copycat threats. Some from teenagers chasing attention, others from voices too calm to be brushed off. Out on the streets, the city had changed its face. Women with long black hair were suddenly rare. Hats and scarves hid what couldn't be cut. Some wore wigs of unnatural colors, neon pinks and silvers. Anything to break the silhouette. Evening commuters kept their heads down, glancing at reflective surfaces, flinching at the sound of footsteps. Behind them. Then, just after 4 p.m., it hit. Every news feed, every trending topic, every television in every waiting room. Frozen for a moment, replaced by black. A faint hiss of static. Then a single frame. A feeder curtain in deep red, perfectly lit. Words in white appeared, crisp as a title card. "Tomorrow, 9 p.m., she will take her bow." The frame flickered once, twice, then vanished. Returning the feeds to whatever they had been showing before. Was less than 7 seconds of interference. But by the time it ended, hashtags were erupting again, and somewhere in the FBI operations floor, every agent knew they had less than 24 hours to stop him. Her shift had run late. The newsroom was half empty when Mia Torres finally shut down her terminal, the screens still glowing with endless loops of Lena's broadcast. Air smelled of stale coffee and printer toner. She rubbed her eyes, told herself she was imagining the weight in her chest, and headed for the elevator. Outside, the city's neon signs smeared across the wet pavement. The rain was light, but enough to blur her reflection in shop windows. Didn't see the bouquet until she reached her apartment door. A dozen red roses, bound tight with a black ribbon. A small card tucked among the thorns. Her breath caught before she even unfolded it. "Your close-up is next." She dropped the flowers, heart pounding, and turned in a slow circle down the empty hallway. Nothing. No sound but the drip of rain from a gutter outside. She pulled her phone from her bag, thumb hovering over the emergency dial, then froze. The screen lit up with a notification. A live stream link, sender unknown, Somewhere else. A dim room. Multiple cameras mounted on tripods. The director adjusting a light until the shadows fell perfectly across the center of the frame. On the main monitor, a digital countdown ticked. Away. 0 hours 14 minutes and 32 seconds. He checked each relay server connection. 5 different paths. Bouncing the signal across continents before it would land. Back on local feeds. Perfect. Untouchable. He glanced at another screen, showing a grainy feed of Mia, still in the hallway, staring at her phone. She reads the note, he murmured, voice almost tender. And the scene begins. Mia moved fast now, nearly running down the hall, fumbling with her keys for the stairwell instead of the elevator. The metal door slammed behind her with a hollow echo. Her phone buzzed again. Without thinking, she looked. The stream was already. Love. The first thing she saw was herself, captured from somewhere high above, maybe a building across the street, moving down the stairwell. Her pulse roared in her ears. She bolted down the last few flights, burst into the alley, and didn't care that the rain soaked her hair to her face. Inside FBI Command Center. Stream just hijacked Channel 7's ad block. A tech shouted. We've got 15,000 viewers already. Wait, 50 Jesus, it's climbing. Trace it, Agent Keller barked. We're on it. Multiple relay hops, switching IPs every 3 seconds. He's ghosting us. Mia turned onto the main street, traffic rushing past. Somewhere behind her, a van door slid open. A hand clamped over her mouth. The bouquet of roses hit the pavement and scattered into the gutter. The live feed jolted as the angle shifted, now showing her being pulled backward, legs kicking, rain splashing against the lens dot in the lair. The director leaned toward his camera. Ladies and gentlemen, he said softly, tonight's star has arrived. The feed cut abruptly to black, replaced by the countdown again. 0 hours 9 minutes and 58 seconds. FBI text scrambled, servers overheating under the strain of constant redirection. He's got mirrors up in at least 4 countries, one muttered. Every time we lock a signal, it's already dead. Then burn them faster. Keller said, I don't care if we have to kill half the damn internet. Get me a location. Back in the lair, the director adjusted Mia's chair under the lights, her wrists bound, hair plastered to her face. He stepped back, studied the frame, and smiled. Perfect composition. He whispered. The countdown hit 0 hours 6 minutes and 0 seconds. Millions of viewers waited in silence. The stream's chat exploding in real time. Panic, horror, disbelief. Somewhere in that scrolling blur, the director imagined. His true fans were smiling. The operations floor was still humming from the failed trace when Keller found Samara Holt standing alone at the evidence board. The profiler's eyes weren't on the latest victim photos. They were on something older. A grainy printout from an archive database, pulled up on her tablet. This isn't his first performance, she said, without turning. Keller came closer. What am I looking at? She tapped the image. A stage, half consumed by smoke. The scorched remains of velvet curtains. A collapsed lighting rig frozen mid-fall in a still frame pulled from VHS footage. 15 years ago. Lincoln High School. Springfield, Illinois. Spring play. The Glass Menagerie. Her voice was low, steady, but her jaw tightened. Local news channel sent a crew to cover it. Place caught fire in the middle of Act 2. Electrical fault in the lighting grid. Keller's gaze shifted to the center of the frame. Among the smoke and shadows, a single figure stood out. A girl, maybe 16, hair long and black. Her dress catching light just before the image cut to static. She didn't make it out, Samara continued. Name was Emily Kessner. The feed kept broadcasting for almost 3 minutes before they pulled it. Every household watching local TV that night saw her die live. Keller's tone softened. And you think, I don't think, I know. She pulled a set of side-by-side photos from a folder, screen captures of the director's victims. Each framed like a stage shot. Each lit almost identically to the archival image. He's not just killing women with long black hair. He's casting them, restaging the scene. In the briefing room, the team gathered around a projection of the old footage. Forensics confirms, said a young agent, pointing with a laser pen. Curtain material in the lair matches the fabric type used in Lincoln High's theater before the fire. He's reconstructed it, down to the lighting angles. Samara leaned forward. 15 years ago, Emily Kessner's classmates were scattered. Some in foster care after the fire destroyed more than the building. Homes were lost. Families displaced. Most were interviewed at the time, but there's one name that went dark after the investigation ended. She clicked to the next slide. A school portrait. A boy with pale eyes and an expression too old for his years. Jason Reddick. 14 at the time. Sat in the front row that night. Lost both parents in the fire. Bounced through 6 foster homes in 3 years. Last known address is a group home in St. Louis. No current record. Keller frowned. And you're saying he's our director? I'm saying, Samara replied. He's the only one with motive, memory, and the obsessive visual accuracy we're seeing. This isn't random violence. It's theater therapy gone psychotic. They dug deeper. Foster care files. Juvenile psych evaluations. A thin paper trail riddled with gaps, like someone had deliberately erased him. In one report, written by a counselor when Jason was 16, there was a single underlined note, fixated on retelling the scene. Talks about bringing the audience back, so they can feel it this time. Samara read the line aloud, and silence followed. Keller finally broke it. We find him. We stop him before 9 o'clock tomorrow. Otherwise, this next girl dies on schedule. The weight of that sentence hung in the air. On the far wall, the digital clock ticked over, 21 hours and change until curtain. And somewhere, in a lair lined with televisions, Jason Reddick, the director, was already blocking his next scene. The warehouse was a set before it was a trap. Every inch had been dressed to match the director's aesthetic. Deep crimson curtains. A single chair under a hanging spotlight. Cameras poised at multiple angles. Hidden mics in the walls fed a control van parked 2 blocks away. And in the center, playing her part with calculated fragility, sat Melissa Rhodes, a trained undercover agent with hair dyed jet black for the role. The broadcast began. At exactly 8:15 p.m., a fake investigative segment on the killer's crimes, scripted to bait him. The anchor tossed to Melissa, reporting live from a dimly lit alley set built for the sting. Her voice trembled just enough to feel real. In the control van, Samara watched the monitors with her jaw locked. Come on, Jason, take the cue. At 8:29, a van without plates rolled into the alley. A figure stepped out, tall, lean, head covered by a black hood. His gait was unhurried, almost theatrical. The comms channel crackled with whispered orders as tactical teams moved into position. Director approached Melissa, his voice just loud enough for the boom mic to catch. You've been cast, he said softly. Don't be nervous. They'll feel every moment. She flinched convincingly, buying time, her eyes darting to the shadowed rooftops where snipers waited. He reached into his coat. Not for a weapon, for a small card, white on black. Same phrase he'd left on every wall. The audience must feel it. By 8:32, he'd ushered her toward his own van. The tactical lead gave the green light. 2 SUVs cut off the street ahead. Another blocked the rear. Armed agents swarmed, shouting commands, but the director didn't run. He smiled, lifted his hand slowly and said, She's already in the scene. You wouldn't want to ruin the take. Inside his lair, minutes later, the tension doubled. Every wall was alive with screens, live feeds of the sting. Earlier murders were playing in endless loops. Melissa's terrified face in close-up. Keller kept his sidearm steady while Samara stepped forward. You're Jason Reddick, she said. Lincoln High, 2009. You survived the fire. His smile widened, but his eyes narrowed. Survived? No, I lived. And now I make sure they live it too. He paced slowly, speaking as though to an invisible audience. When she died on stage, they just cut to commercial. No grief, no truth. I promised her they'd watch until the end next time. You've killed 8 women, Keller said flatly. Jason's gaze shifted, locking on him with unnerving calm. No, I've given them a role. I've given them something real. You're the ones trying to kill it. Samara took another step. It's over. Let her go. Jason tilted his head, then nodded toward an empty camera in the corner. "Step into the frame, Agent Holt. Look right into the lens. Feel what she felt. Then you'll understand." For a moment, the air seemed to thin. Samara's breath slowed, and she could feel the pull of the camera, the way his words wrapped the scene in inevitability. Keller saw it in her eyes. "Sam," Jason's voice cut him off. "You've been chasing me for days, Agent. But the audience, they don't care about the chase. They care about the ending. Don't you want them to remember you?" Melissa whimpered in her chair, the sound jarring enough to snap Samara back. "No," she said, her voice sharp now. "The ending's mine." The next second was chaos. Jason's hand darted to a control switch on the desk. Every screen flickered, cutting to a close-up of Melissa's face as he lunged toward her. Keller moved, firing once. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Jason's body jerked, staggered backward, and hit the floor. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the hiss of static from the screens. Then one by one, it went dark. Melissa was freed. A tactical team flooded in. Samara stood over Jason's still form, chest rising and falling, barely. On the main monitor, a final frozen frame lingered for a few seconds before fading. Crimson curtain swaying slightly, as though the show had just ended. The hospital kept him under heavy sedation for 48 hours. When Jason Reddick finally woke, he was handcuffed to a steel bed frame. 2 armed guards posted at the door. The FBI's behavioral unit had their questions ready, but he gave them nothing. No protest, no explanation. No smirk, no outburst. When asked if more episodes had been planned, he stared at the ceiling. When shown photos of the victims, his eyes flicked toward them once, then back to the same ceiling tile. The silence was its own kind of performance. 2 days later, the Bureau raided his lair in full daylight. The air inside was stale, faintly metallic from the countless wires, cameras, and equipment still humming in standby. Behind a false wall, they found the archive. Dozens of unmarked black cases, stacked neatly like a library of unwritten nightmares. Each one held a tape. Each tape had a name scrawled in white marker. Some were familiar, women already confirmed among the victims. Others were strangers to the investigation. A few had dates written instead of names. Future dates. Samara stood in the doorway of the storage room longer than she meant to. She knew the forensic team would catalog everything, knew that Keller was already on the phone with Washington, but the sight of those tapes, so carefully arranged, so deliberately preserved, made her skin crawl. It wasn't just what he'd done. It was the cold preparation for what he hadn't yet done. The city's pulse began to slow in the weeks that followed, but the memory of those broadcasts clung to it like a smell that wouldn't wash out. Hair salons stayed busy, their walls lined with anxious customers. The streets felt less watched, but not unwatched. The nightly news slowly shifted its lead stories back to politics, weather, sports. But every so often, an anchor's expression would tighten as they read a report about a suspicious live feed flagged to police. Most were nothing. A few were ugly pranks. One, from a teenager's bedroom, ended with handcuffs and crying parents. The copycats weren't as skilled, but they didn't need to be to keep the fear alive. Jason's trial was set for the following spring. Until then, he sat in federal custody, eating in silence, moving in silence, speaking in silence. Sometimes Samara wondered if his quiet wasn't defiance, but satisfaction. The same satisfaction of a curtain drop after a play well received. The tapes were locked away in evidence storage. Analysts worked through them frame by frame, cataloging scenes, cross-referencing faces with missing persons reports. They'd already identified 3 women no one had reported missing yet. Somewhere, families would soon get calls they didn't want. On a cold Thursday night, Samara returned home after another day in the archives. The television in her living room was off. Or so she thought. The screen was black, the kind of deep, uniform black that comes from a deliberate signal, not a powered-down set. She stared for a moment. Then, faintly, words appeared in white text. "This story is not over." The letters faded. The screen went truly dark. She stood there for a long time, remote in hand, unsure if the room felt colder or if it was just her, somewhere in another city, in another home. Another broadcast might already be starting.